And welcome back, everybody, to the Podcaster Nation. That's right. I said welcome back because I know you were just listening to our stuff and you loved it so much that you came back for more. Brilliant choice. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant because we have a lot more for you. Why do we have a lot more for you? Because this is the podcast that's about podcasters. It's for podcasters. It's done by podcasters. And our guest today is a podcaster who has a podcast about podcasters. Folks, try and keep up. Okay. I'm telling you, this is going to be awesome. I can't wait for this conversation. This is the place where we come together to raise each other up. And as I'm always saying to you, it's the place where the rising tide truly raises all ships. So let's get rocking and rolling. Let's get sailing and bring in our guest today. Get ready. Here comes the CV. Three-time best-selling author, TEDx speaker and MC, podcast host, founder and CEO of Podcast Solutions Made Simple. Please welcome to the show the host of Communication, Connection, Community, the Podcasters Podcast, Carl Richards. Carl, how you doing, brother?
I'm great, Rory. Thank you. I'm really excited for this. So, wait a minute. We both have podcasts that are for podcasters by podcast. Is that what I'm to understand? Is it
I think that's kind of what happened.
there's two of us?
There's
Wait a
two of
minute.
us.
When did we get cloned? That's what
Honestly, Carl, if you had hair and a goatee, I would think that you were my long lost twin brother at this point.
uh,
So,
or sister. You never know.
I mean, however you roll. I just met you. So, all right, listen, Carl, I know we got a lot we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Go ahead and just tell everybody who is Carl Richards, what are you about? Give them an idea of who you are, man.
Oh my goodness. I was born at a young age. And here I
As we
am.
all were. All right.
Yeah. I was one of those kids who I was did not have the gift of gab when I was younger. A lot of kids don't shut up because they always have questions, but I stuttered a lot when I was a kid. So
Hmm.
speaking was something that was not easy for me. So I always say I'm making up for lost time now because up until the age of 12, my parents would say, "Carl, stop and start again because you're stuttering." But yeah, that was my formative years of being a stutterer. And then after 2 years of speech therapy, essentially growing out of it. And then, of course, as I'm growing out of it, I'm in my awkward teen years. We all know what those are like. So, yeah, but I'm very passionate about podcasting, passionate about communication. My first love was radio. Sorry, Lisa, but I loved radio more than you. Uh,
Oh,
but
wow.
seriously, it's okay. It's okay. Uh, I'll let you leave that one. I'll let you take that one as you will. But no,
Man.
seriously, the
Mm.
first love was radio, and I loved the broadcast world, and it's evolved a lot over the years, of course. But now I do what I do to help people be more successful in the podcasting space, and it's not just about the show. It's about after the show. It's about the strategy. It's about behind the scenes. It's about the community that you're serving. Because as podcasters, we have community. It's called our listenership or viewership.
Oh, yeah.
How are you serving them? So that's why I'm passionate about what I do, is because it's all communication, which I struggled with from the age of 4 roughly till the age of 14.
I mean, honestly, that's amazing to hear. You're an excellent speaker. I would never in a million years have guessed that you overcame something like that. So, I mean, power to you, brother. That's fantastic.
Thank you. And I'll tell you, there have been along the way, there have been times where I scratch my head and go, is it coming back? Is that stuttering thing? Usually, when things shift in your life, it's a new job, or
Mhm.
you're away from home for the first time, or things that are just going on. So it's all a mental, hopscotch that I guess is going on. But yeah, it's taken a lot to work on it. So when people say, especially and you understand this, Rory, people coming to the podcasting space, when am I going to be successful? Well, it took me a while to be successful in speaking and communications and really feel confident in that space. So new podcasters, you're okay. Give it some time.
Yeah.
Let's talk in 5 to 7 years if you're still in the trenches. Then, between Rory and myself, we can see how we can help you get out of it. But give it some time and give yourself some love and patience and understanding, really.
Yeah. Great advice. I absolutely love that.
Mhm.
And it's funny because people will ask me after this episode, why would you bring on a guy who does the same thing that you do, and so on and so forth, because he's your competition. I really don't buy that. I've never bought into that.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody who wants to work with me may not want to work with you, vice versa. If they like you, they may not like me. I mean, there's not enough of us doing what we do. And so I really do believe the rising tide raises all ships in podcasting. I just absolutely believe that.
Plus, we're both dashingly handsome, good-looking men. So, I
There is
mean, if for
that.
no other reason, but seriously, I mean, yeah, when prior to this, when I was working in broadcasting, I had a part-time business doing speaker training, and I used to think that other people who were speaker trainers, they were competition. And I had a colleague explain to me once as we were working together on a project, ironically enough, he said two things of huge value. He said, you know what? He said, there's more than enough work for everyone. It's the first thing that he said. And I thought, he's right. And the second thing he said was, you're very good at this. You're very good with the presence and the gestures and how you're performing on stage and voice. He says, I'm really good at storytelling and script writing. And I was like, oh, okay. So we're coming at it from different angles. So whether you're working with Rory or whether you're working with myself or discovery calls with both of us, I mean, it doesn't matter. As I said, there's enough work for both of us. We're both going to come to it from a very different perspective, and we might have different ideas about shows too. That one might land better with you, Rory, than will land with me, or vice versa. So
Absolutely.
that's why there's more than enough work for everybody.
Love that. I appreciate you backing that up. Absolutely, 100%. All right. So, hey, Carl, how did you get into this podcasting thing? I mean, what made you at one point in your life go, you know what, I want to start a podcast. This is what I want to do. This is the business I want to be in. Give it to me. Give me the story.
Oh my goodness. Well, to begin with, they say you haven't made it in broadcasting till you've been fired from at least one job. So I was fired twice, literally like it
Congratulations.
was in WKRP. Thank you. Thank you. Town to town, up and down the dial, just like you hear in the WKRP theme song. And between radio gigs around 2010, I didn't think I'd get back into radio. I eventually did. But at that point, I had a colleague come up to me and say, hey, Carl, you're good at this speaking thing. And I was a Toastmaster then. I was competing and winning speech contests. I was a really good evaluator because I had my speaking skills that I was honing through Toastmasters. But then I also had those broadcast skills that were invaluable. So I merged the two together after a colleague said, why don't you do speaker training or speech coaching? So I merged the two together, those two skill sets, and birthed my business. And like every brand new business owner around 2011, I thought I'd be $100,000 heir. By the time year two rolled around, and I wasn't. But what I figured out was, or what somebody else shared with me was, there were other tools that I could start to incorporate in my business. And one of them was a podcast, which, by the way, if you remember back to 2012, I don't know when you launched your show, Rory, but podcasts they weren't in diapers back then, but they were still in that awkward adolescent phase. You know what I mean?
For
They
sure.
really were. A lot of people didn't know what podcasts were, including myself. It took me until I remember being at an event in Toronto. It was a real estate investor summit, actually. The main stage speaker was Tony Robbins, but they had breakout rooms. And in one of the breakout rooms was a guy by the name of Sam Crowley. I don't know if you know who Sam Crowley is, but Sam Crowley had a podcast since 2005. And his whole thing was, you can launch a podcast, launch it for free, need $0, yada, yada, yada. Then he's trying to sign you into his, of course, $500 or $1,000 program. So much for free. But anyways, I realized that, okay, I've got this broadcasting experience. I've got this speaking thing. Now I could start a podcast. And the value of having a podcast was, especially around 2017, 2018, still not a lot of people were doing it. So there were some speaker trainers that had podcasts, but not all of them. And none in my circle had podcasts. So I'm like, I'm going to be a trailblazer in this space. So I launched my podcast. At that time, it was called Speaking of Speaking because I was speaking about speaking. What an appropriate name for it.
There you go.
And from there, it morphed into being about podcasting. Unfortunately, the pandemic ended my radio career through no fault of my own. I mean, radio advertising plummeted by 70% during the pandemic, and I was just one of 8 other people that were let go. But that was an opportunity to pivot my business, which was part-time, make it full-time, but there were no live stages. And I realized that podcasting is a great opportunity for people. There were many people sitting at home wondering what to do with their lives. going, I should do, and a podcast was just one of them. So we started out by helping people, by training them how to launch their own podcasts, which sounds great in theory. But Rory, you know the work that goes into launching a podcast and the content creation and learning how to edit. And this is pre all these fancy AI tools we have now. This is showing people how to edit using. I use Audacity because it's easy to teach people how to use Audacity.
Right.
So I'll say, and again, audio only, right?
Hmm.
Showing people how to edit in Audacity. I had people coming up to me and say, "Carl, I love your program, but I'm not going to have the time at the end of it to do my podcast. Can you do it for me?" And then the agency was born because I said, yes, I can help you do that. So that's the backstory of how we got into podcasting, and we've had some great success since that time.
I love that story. Now, is that part of Podcast Solutions Made Simple? That you actually do the podcast for folks or for businesses or individuals, or is it more training individuals? Tell us about the business.
So we still do offer training because, as you know, Rory, there are a lot of great podcasts out there, and there
Mhm.
are some not so great podcasts out there. But that's also to say there are a lot of great podcast programs out there. And guess what? There are also some not so great podcast training programs out there. So we shifted away from training to focus on the agency work and helping people behind the scenes. But then we realized that there was this gap. There was this, we really need to be getting our messaging out there and, helping people make the decision if a podcast is right for them. Because if most people don't know, not most people, well, everyone doesn't know what they don't know, right? So we want to make sure that we're putting the right information in front of them. The time it takes, the commitment it takes, the effort you should be putting in, the strategy behind doing a podcast, not just saying, I'm going to do a podcast, but actually having some strategy behind it. So we do focus a lot on the strategy, with high quality production being just one piece of that strategy. Because when folks come to us, they're looking to level up their business, or they're looking to really bring brand awareness to them, or they're looking to, they've written a book and they want to get their credibility or their IP out there. So that's where we fit in, is to really help them do that. And as you know, Rory, it's evolved from just being audio to now there's video components and reels and shorts, and we can get into that too if you want, but certainly all those other tools. So we are definitely doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but a lot of our focus is on strategy, and that goes with podcast guesting as well, and helping people who only want to guest on shows or want to leverage that as a strategy to get into the podcasting space, helping them with that too.
I love that. There's really not
Yeah.
enough help going on right now for podcast guesting.
Mm-mm,
Just not
mm-mm.
enough at all. So I love that you're
There's
doing
the there's those big agencies that have been around forever,
it. Sure.
and they're doing great job. They have great reputations. And here's the thing: the average person, though, either isn't ready or doesn't need to be on a Wall Street Journal podcast or an AWS podcast. Like they want to be on something that's more grassroots. So what's the best way to do that? Well, you can invest $50,000 for one of those agencies to help you do that, or you can go, and that's a huge investment for most people. If they're coming to podcasting, looking at podcasting for the first time as a marketing tool or something to help them with their branding, $50,000 is a chunk,
Oh yeah.
right? That's a chunk to plunk down. Um, you come to us though, and not that we're gonna not that I'm gonna name my prices, but it's not going to be $50,000. It's going to be a little bit lower than that for you to get in and start leveraging the value of being in the podcasting space. And here's the other thing, Rory, I know you know this. There are way more people who want to be on podcasts than there are actual podcasts. And
I
that's
agree
why
with
there's
that
a
completely.
there's a value in that strategy.
Yeah, 100%. That's supply and demand that you're talking about right there. I
Yeah.
mean, that's simple stuff. No, I love that. I love it.
Math
That's
is hard, but I figured that out finally.
that's awesome. Unfortunately, something as simple as supply and demand is something that's been lost on people, I think,
Mm-hmm.
over the last
Mm-hmm.
decade. But it's wonderful that you do that. The Now you've been doing your podcast for a minute, that's for sure. So how does the
Yeah.
podcast relate to the business? What do people expect when they go to listen to it? And I appreciate everything that you're bringing here today, because I mean, how many
Thanks.
lives are we going to change today, brother?
I think that's the big thing is, my podcast. When I launched it in 2019, it was a completely different show. We rebranded it 2 years ago when I realized I had this podcast that was still talking about speaking. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not even doing that. That's not what I'm doing anymore. I'm talking about podcasting. So silly me, what do? I launch a second podcast because I have more than enough time to do two. I
Of
can
course,
barely do
right?
my one, right? I'm like, let me launch a second one. So I eventually realized that I was doing double the work. And really what I needed to do was let the original show go and focus on communication, connection, community. And within that, I recognized that I believe, and I think we're cut from a similar piece of cloth, Rory, but I believe that there are three elements to podcasting, to content creation, I think in general. They are, ironically enough, they are communication, the speaking part, the getting your messaging out, connection, connecting not just with guests and with other people, but also connecting with your community and with your listenership. And then there's community. Are you building community? Is there community? What about you is community? And sometimes that community piece is giving to your community, your immediate community, your global community, whatever it is. So that's how the podcast was born. So we're there to help podcasters not only be better podcasters, but look at podcasting differently than maybe they have been looking at it up to this point. So some of the guests that we have talk about everything from AI to, my favorite is how long some podcasters' journeys have been before they see real success with the show. Some
Right.
of the, I almost quit my podcast year 4, and then there was an epiphany that kept them going. Those are the stories I love. And that's the empowerment that we like to pack into every episode.
Those are great stories.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're inspirational, first of all, but they speak to all the podcasters out there that are just frustrated beyond belief with what they're doing. So I absolutely love those stories. You're 100%
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. We want those instant results. And who doesn't? I mean, Rory, I don't know when you started your show, but me, 2018, 2019, I wanted those. Give me my 10,000 listeners so I can go and monetize my show and make 50
Right.
cents, right? That's kind of and I didn't know then that's kind of what monetization, how it starts out. But I thought that I was going to get this massive audience. And I realized that unlike broadcasting, you can have a small podcast audience and still have massive impact and bring in 2, 3, 4 clients a year because you're so you're so in touch with your audience, but you've niched it down. You've figured out who you're talking to. So, anyways, that's my
Love it.
2 cents there.
I love it. I've been doing mine for, let's see, I guess I sort of officially started in 2018 with the podcast
Nice.
part. So I did it kind
Nice.
of the other way. I was a speaker first and then went to the podcasting, thing,
Right.
and
Right.
just got into it right before the pandemic hit. So, again, we,
Yeah.
we, we all remember that saga. So yeah, for sure. I think we have a lot of the same memories, so to speak, in that
Mhm.
way. But I love what you're doing. Now, in terms of who your target is with your business, are you looking more towards the individual startup indie podcaster, or are you looking more towards the business, C corp type area?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. We love startups, but they don't like us so much because, and I say that respectfully, because when a lot of people come to us and they're a startup, they recognize they need to get the word out about what it is that they do, and I totally respect that. But the big thing they need is clients. They need that social proof. So we like to work more with subject matter experts who are a few years in. That's not to say we're going to not let or have conversations with people who are at the startup level. But we recognize that we can really help people who want to level up from being, I've been in business 5 years or 6 years or 8 years. I'm a real estate investor. I've got my feet wet. I'm getting some traction, and now I want to level up to, I'm at my quarter million. I'm just throwing numbers out here, but I'm
Sure.
at my $250,000 in revenue, business revenue. I need to level up to half, or I'm at half and I want to go to 1 million. So those are the kinds of clients that we're working with, because we recognize that they're bringing a lot of skin in the game. They're bringing skin in the game. They're also bringing they're bringing the check to write the check and say, hey, I can do this. We do have great training though for people who are wanting to be more indie podcasters, do it themselves, have fun learning the trench work, so to speak. We're happy to have conversations with them for sure. But for serious business owners, real estate investors, speakers who have, figured out the stage and aren't just getting on one for the first time, I think those are the folks who um, really have impact to us as a business, because we like to strategize with them and partner with them. So I think more in that light for sure.
Nice. Now, when I was
Yeah.
reading up on you and on your business, I did see real estate pop up quite a bit. Is
Yeah.
that just a preference or something that have a lot of fondness for, or is that kind of a niche that you've been working into?
It's a niche that we're working into, and there's a very strategic reason for this. And I don't know what your knowledge is in this space, Rory, but if you've heard real estate podcasts, I mean, what's the difference between one real estate podcast and another?
Usually nothing.
Neither do I. They all sound exactly. They all sound
Right.
exactly the same, because they're talking about market conditions, and this is a REIT, and this is this.
Mhm.
There's this technique, and there's this house for sale. Um, we know, because of how we approach it, because we're approaching it with strategy first, as opposed to just let's spray and pray our podcast out there and hopefully it lands somewhere. We know that we can help those individuals strategize to cut through the noise of just being another real estate podcast. So that's who we're really wanting to have dynamic conversations with and help, because I hear them, I see them, I see the reels that are going out there as well on social
Yeah.
media platforms, and go, when you're doing what everyone else is doing, there's a line from there's a line from The Incredibles, and I'm going to totally screw it up, but the line is something like, when everyone is super, nobody
No one
is.
is. Syndrome. Oh, I love that you just quoted The
Syndrome. Yeah.
Incredibles. That's
See?
hilarious.
So thank you for finalizing or tying the bow on that. But same thing, when all real estate podcasts sound exactly the same,
Yeah.
there's no differentiation. Same thing. So we want, even if we were doing had two real estate podcast clients, which we do, we want them to sound different, because they're probably in different markets. If they're investors, they're probably investing in different products or different kinds of real estate, which they are, by the way.
Yeah.
And then they also have different partners, which they do. So, and different clients, which they do. So, yeah, you got me on my soapbox now, Rory. I just
Man, I didn't realize I was unwrapping this when I
yeah,
brought up real estate. So
I'm unraveling.
I love it. One of the themes that you're talking about right now, I absolutely love that you're putting out there
Mm.
for everybody who's listening, and that is that don't try to be the same as everybody else. Be
Oh,
you and try to be different. Everybody
mm.
is like, well, this is what everybody does, so I have to have this opening, I have to have this music, I have to have this layout. This is how it has to work, and there are still no rules. I
Mm.
mean, this is still technically the wild, wild west. We are making up our rules as we go, and it's kind of cool, right?
Platonically speaking, Rory, I love you. I mean, you've said exactly. I had to preface that by saying
Well, and I
platonically speaking,
appreciate that. Yeah, throw that.
um, because I say this all the time, all the time. In radio, there are rules. 7:30 news is at 7:30, not 7:45, not 7:36,
Right. Yeah.
7:30. You're a country music station, you play country music. You're a rock, you play rock. You don't play country, you play rock, right? Those are rules. You have ratings, you have all these rules that get, and I, again, having worked in that space, you're bound by the rules. Plus, you're bound by whatever because a lot of media is now corporate. We see that with the large networks in the US and in Canada, we have some too. There's corporate rules, and here's the rules, and here's how we do programming, and here's the. With podcasting, still the Wild West, there are no rules. And just because I start my podcast with a pre-recorded intro, and I'm the guy that does my pre-recorded intro, by the way, over music, doesn't mean you have to. But just because somebody comes along and decides to do a little snippet from the episode as a lead-in doesn't mean all of a sudden, boom, I have to change how I do my intro, because no, you don't have to do that. But there are a lot of podcast what do you call them, strategists or trainers out there that say, oh,
Mhm.
well, the new trend is to put a little snippet at the beginning. And I go, okay, cool. Why? Well, it's a hook. Okay, great. Why? Well,
Right.
it's, and I get it. I get it. But when everyone is doing it, when everyone is super, no one is.
Love
It's
every
funny how
word
we
you're
keep
saying.
going back to that theme.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. I hear those words. Well, the new trend is, and I finish the sentence with, then I'm not doing it.
Exactly. Same as,
Not for me.
remember when Reels first came out, Instagram Reels,
Mhm.
and we're still seeing a lot of this today, but it was top, one on the top and one on the bottom, kind of like you're on a Zoom screen, and here's what it is, and there's the scrolling text, so people can watch it without having to. But lighting was bad, camera angles where I would do it with my webcam, but some people were you're looking up at their nose and others are looking down here, like just absolutely horrible. Or somebody was purple because their camera was at a weird angle or the coloring was bad. And when you ask people, okay, how many clients or how many prospects or how many leads are you getting from those reels? You know what the general answer is?
What's that?
Zero. So that effort that you're putting into putting those reels out there to have an Instagram audience of 167 people and you're getting this, and I don't know if that's the right number or not. So that's why everything with us becomes a strategy, because when you're doing what everybody else is doing, thinking you're making a difference, you're not.
Right.
Mic drop.
I mean, that could be the end of the show right there. You're not.
well,
That's
well, we
it.
don't.
Thanks for coming.
Let's not mic drop. Well, maybe we won't mic drop yet. I'm having too much fun, and it sounds like you are too, my friend.
I absolutely love it. All right. I mean, let's get into the podcast a little bit too,
Sure.
in terms of your podcast itself. Now, how do you
Mm-hmm.
promote your podcast slash your business? Does one promote the other? Do you promote both of them independently? Because that's always kind of a question that people are wondering. I want to promote my business. I want to make more
Yeah.
money. So do I promote the podcast so the podcast can help promote the business, or is that just on its own? Good luck. I hope it grows. Right.
I actually put up a poster at the mall and hope that people have the tearaway that goes, listen to my podcast. I'm
There you go.
kidding,
There you
Rory. I'm
go.
kidding.
Oh, that's
Can
old
you
school
imagine
right
though?
there.
But it worked for marketing, right? Yeah, telephone pole, little tear strips. Looking for a babysitter? Here
Yep.
we go.
I remember the
Need someone
flyers.
to knit your socks? There you go. Or flyers. Flyers, another one, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, so I have a coach who has beat it in my head, and it's finally sunk in, that your marketing for your business should be your marketing on your podcast. So whatever you're talking about on your podcast should be part of your marketing strategy for your business. And she takes it to the extent of having a calendar, so a marketing calendar laid out that says, here's January, start of the new year. What are some of the things that are going on in January? Well, she does quarterly CEO planning. So in January on her podcast, she's actually on a hiatus from her podcast. She's doing a live television or live video series right now. Anyways, when she was
Okay.
actively doing her podcast, January was about planning for the year, CEO planning for the year. February, probably something about love or something about it being winter still in Canada where it's freaking cold in February still. But she's talking about, so she would structure her year based on the marketing, and then she could structure her content for not only her podcast, but all of her marketing, with the podcast being just part of it. Now, do you have to be that specific? Absolutely not. But it helps because then your messaging is consistent across all of your platforms. That's not to say you can't style shift. That's not to say you can't get into April and say, I got this idea. Oh, my marketing plan said this. No, you can still change things up, or you can do things like, you know what? I want to add hot seat coaching to my podcast somehow. Well, there's an opportunity for you to do it. But I think it should be consistent messaging across the brand. So how I promote my podcast is I promote it through my speaking. So usually when I'm speaking, my introduction to you was on a podcast. I'm the host of a podcast. But then also
Sure.
when I'm speaking on stage, same thing. It's on my social media channels. I'm also promoting it to my email list. Um, when I'm attending, summits, I'm promoting it. So I'm promoting it across my channels, and I'm also promoting my business in the same way as well.
I love this. And
So
as you
cross
were saying that,
pollination.
yeah, for sure. As you were saying this, another question popped into my head that I've heard from several folks. And you're like the perfect person to ask this question to. So I'm really glad that I actually thought of this. I mean, when you're my age, you can't always count on the pistons firing. So it's working out. I've had people who have had either separate podcasts or they've had separate businesses, like what you're talking about, separate arms to the
Mhm.
business, where you have a podcast, you have a website, you have speaking that you're doing, maybe that you've written books, those types of things. And they do ask, do you have separate sites or separate social media accounts and so on? Because the hashtags and everything else gets so different in
Mhm.
terms of who
Mhm.
you're appealing to, or do you put it all together under, you know, one umbrella and these are all the products? I'm
Yeah,
curious what you have to say about that.
that's a very good question. And again, when I go to my business coach, and she says, your branding should be consistent. Um, I think there's something to be said about that. I think when you have a podcast that's this, a website that's this, a Facebook page that's this, there's no consistency in your branding, right? So I think you want to be consistent in that. I think if you want people, I mean, websites, we still want people to come to our websites, right? We still want there to be that traction to our websites. Well, if the podcast isn't even going to our website, how are we getting the traction to our website? So my podcast is on my website. Um, my podcast, my Facebook group, it used to be called Podcast Production Made Simple. I've changed it to Podcast Solutions Made Simple, which is the name of my business. Even though my podcast is not called Podcast Solutions Made Simple, and there's a strategic reason for that. By the way, there's another guy who we both know, whose podcast is called Podcasting Made Simple. I didn't want there to be some confusion with that.
Hmm.
Alex Sanfilippo, you owe me another 50 cents because I'm mentioning your name on yet another podcast.
Right.
Um,
Founder of Podmatch.
apparently, you
Hashtag.
founder of Podmatch. Yeah. Hashtag Alex,
Right.
hashtag Sanfilippo.
Right.
Great guy, by the way. Super duper guy. Um,
Absolutely.
and make sure he listens to this episode, Rory. If I don't, make sure you tag him in
I
and
think I'm
say,
going to
we
tag him in
mentioned
this one.
Alex. Because we're mentioning his name so much. We want to raise, I
Yeah.
think.
Seriously,
And
Alex, we love you, man. I mean, you're the greatest. But
he is, he really is. But consistency in that branding, and we do mention in the show what the name of our business is. So we do mention it quite often directly in the business. And my logo and my coloring for my podcast is the same branding for my business.
nice.
So even though the show is named slightly differently, or slightly different rather, the color, the logos, the fonts, it's the same. So
Nice.
there's
Okay.
something about consistency in branding. It's kind of like if you take a large corporation like McDonald's, just because they decide to start offering a new product doesn't mean they get rid of the golden arches. It means they incorporate it into whatever their existing marketing or their existing branding is. So think
Right.
about it that way. Think about some of the companies who, just because Netflix has new series coming on it doesn't mean it changes. Now, having said that, you might be old enough to remember this, Rory. And I believe it was Columbia Pictures. There was a period of time in I want to say 60s/70s, where every now and again at the beginning, it's either Columbia or Universal. Anyways, they would have whoever the statuette was. Was that Columbia or Universal?
Oh,
Anyways,
goodness.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, it was like the Statue of Liberty, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
better
and it
looking.
was that person and the glittering and the lights and all
Hmm.
that. Every now and again, I don't know how many times they did this with movies, that statue would change into a character within that movie.
Wow, you
And
got me on that one. Wow.
I'll actually give you a movie. It's
Okay.
an older one, but I'll give you the movie that you can check out. Just watch the opening credits, okay, and sing along if you know the song. Um, it's Cat Ballou,
Hmm.
old Western
Right.
spoof
Yeah.
comedy with Lee Marvin. Stubby K was in it, and Nat King Cole. Anyways,
Okay.
Look at the beginning, and there's the statue, and the music comes in, and then partway through, the statuette becomes a cartoon, and gunslinger,
Uh,
female gunslinger, Cat Ballou, boom. So that's the only time where historically that branding, I think, although maybe they've done that with other movie companies as well, where sometimes the branding will shift a little bit or slightly
yeah. Interesting.
during the introduction, but generally it's the same. It's
Right.
consistent across the board. But check out Cat Ballou.
Well, I'm gonna now. I mean, I'm certainly
I
gonna
know
have to
you
go
are.
check it out now. So, but let me write that down. Cat Baloo. Okay.
I'll
I
be
got.
getting a text message at like
You're
3 in the
gonna.
morning. I just finished seeing the intro to Cat Ballou. You were right, man.
And once it's in my notes, it's gospel.
It's
So
a yeah,
it's there.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
That's I appreciate that though. That's a great answer. The
Mhm,
and I love the way that everything's kind of, even if it isn't exactly the same, it's linked and it's
mhm,
consistent, and there are almost figurative backlinks to everything, the way that you put
mhm.
it all together. So that makes total sense. It's a great answer to the question.
Because people want people to find you. So if on one platform you're this and on another platform you're something else, I attune it to business in general. And you've probably seen this in networking groups, Rory, in your business, where 1 minute somebody is, they're a business coach, but then in this networking group they're a financial consultant, and then over here
Hmm.
they're selling Avon, and then over here, you know what I mean? So who are they really? So from a very simplified perspective, if your branding for your business is X, Y, and Z, then that should be the same for your podcast, and the same for your YouTube and all of that stuff, by the way, if you're doing video.
Interesting. I
Yeah.
love the
Yeah.
perspective. Thank you for sharing that with everybody. I know there's people listening to this who are going to get something out of that for sure. But let me go ahead and hit you with my corny question, just because I
Jeez.
could talk to you all day long about this stuff, but at
Okay.
some point we will actually have to wrap it up. So,
Damn.
um, I know, darn it. But the corny question I usually ask everybody is, as you're doing your actual podcast, okay, and you're in the hosting chair, what is it about, doing your podcast that you love the most? And what is it about doing your podcast that you just absolutely positively hate the most?
Oh, geez. I don't know if this is a corny question or if this is me. I have to like peel back some onion layers here. So what I love about the show, what I really love about it, now that I'm doing a lot of guesting. When I started my podcast, I was doing a lot of solo episodes, and even as I was starting to incorporate guests, I still did a lot of solo shows as well. A lot of podcast guests now. I love the conversations I have with people. Love the conversations I have with people because there's phenomenal hosts, guests rather. Rory, you're a phenomenal host, by the way. So thank you. I really appreciate
Thank you. I appreciate that.
sitting on this side of the chair with somebody who knows what they're doing. But sometimes I also think that to flip the coin, I got to talk to people. So it's almost like it's because you always get that one guest and you go, am I going to publish this episode? Because it's just, I thought it was a fit. I thought I did my due diligence. I thought I vetted correctly, but oh no, I didn't. How do I get out of this one? So there's that. But then I think the other piece that I cringe about doing it um, is the guest coming because and I know you'll appreciate this, Rory, because what we do is so important as far as quality and the final product we're putting out there. Is the guest just showing up with earbuds that crackle, or are they showing up ready with a microphone and a headset, or even a good set of earphones that they can? So I often cringe about that, and I go, maybe I should put that in my email. Make sure you have a good sounding thing to capture the audio. So I often don't like that. So that's yeah.
Yeah, I understand. You're preaching to the choir. I understand completely on that one. The my favorite is when they just show up on their phone, no
Oh
headset,
geez.
no mic, no nothing, and no lighting, and and like the kids behind them and the dogs and everything else. And I'm like, I love it. Let's go. This is real
Yeah.
life. Let's do it.
Yeah,
You know?
there's the laundry hamper. Just
It just makes me laugh. I'm like, as long as I can hear you, let's rock and roll. Well, let's keep it
Yeah.
real. But yeah, I know what you mean. 100% know what you mean. I hate to ask this question, but I've been
Well, then
asking it.
don't.
I gotta, because the people want to hear it. So,
Okay.
as much as I can't stand it, how do you, and if so, how do you utilize AI in any of your, podcasting work, so on and so forth?
That question.
I hate that question.
That question.
Hate it.
Um, yeah, I would be an idiot if I didn't say that there are some AI enhancement tools that we use to make our journey as editors easier. But I'll tell you, a lot of what we do is still very grassroots. And when I say grassroots, I don't mean that we're sitting there with tape, a magnetic tape or acetate and editing that way. But it's still very much, we're using um movie maker for some of the larger projects. We're using DaVinci. That's a high-end video editing program which allows for more high advanced color correction, and it has an audio editor in it as well. There's just a lot of functionality in it. Hollywood movie studios use DaVinci, right? But as far as tools we use, if we have to do a quick audio enhancement using something like Descript, we'll use it, but we don't rely on it. We don't rely on it heavily. We still like to do as much and leave as much of the real conversation in there. I'm a very picky editor, and I can tell if something has been through AI or not.
Ah,
I can tell. I can tell by listening to it. If you've put it through AI to remove all the ums and ahs, great. I can tell. I can tell because you cannot remove every single and ah. You can't do it unless the host is that slick at how they deliver them, which most hosts aren't and guests aren't. It's been run through AI, and you can usually hear the choppiness or the harsh edit, the harsh cut
yeah.
of the audio, and you can see it in the video too. So, as far as video goes, that's why we will do multicam editing, because if you just do cut, 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 and it looks choppy, and again, because we soapbox here, because it's a reflection of an individual's brand and their business and their credibility, to us, good enough isn't good enough. And AI, sometimes I think people are approaching it with, I can do that and it'll be good enough. Imagine if a doctor went to do open heart surgery on you, and instead of 100 sutures put in 76 and said, well, that's good enough. So I often put it in those perspectives because, in business, and Rory, I think you'll agree with this. I'm on my soapbox again, Rory, is audiences are critical. They won't tell you they're critical, but they are, and they are judging you. And the reasons why people tune out of podcasts are content's too long, content is boring, or the content is it just doesn't sound right. The audio's not right. It sounds too choppy. The video's too clunky. There's laundry in the background. All those things. Audiences are judging the show, and they're judging you as the guest.
Wonderful advice. Absolutely love it. All right. Great answer to that question that I hate asking.
Thank you. I'm glad there's more I could share, but we'd be here for the next 6 years, and I know there's probably not enough digital tape to capture it all.
Unfortunately, probably not. All right. Listen, I absolutely love that. And you've given so much advice through this already. I almost hate to ask this question. It's kind of like going back to the well too many times. But,
Mm.
as you move forward and with what you've accomplished with your podcasting, with your company, and everything that you've done, what is the best piece of advice that you can give to podcasters who are just simply not quite where you are yet?
First thing is, if you haven't started, I know this sounds very cliche-ish, but just start. Allow yourself the opportunity to start. Just start. Just start doesn't mean launch your podcast today. Allow yourself to take the steps to launch strategically and do it. And the second thing, I think, if I can just throw in two things here, Rory, is, and I mentioned it earlier, is be patient with yourself. Your business didn't start instantaneously. It'll take time to nurture your podcast too. So allow yourself to grow and learn and experience and enjoy the journey. And don't be in a huge hurry to to turn a phrase, don't be in a huge hurry to go viral. Because once you go viral, guess what? People will expect viral results every single time you turn on the microphone, right? So allow yourself the opportunity to enjoy the journey. Just start, enjoy every step of it. And guys like Rory and I, we're here to help you along that journey.
Well, thank you for the plug, and I love that answer. Absolutely fantastic. Carl, I could talk to you all day. I really could. And I appreciate you coming on. Let me do this just as a final wrap-up question for you here. And normally I warn people about this, but as sharp as you are, you're going to knock it out of the park. So, is there anything I didn't ask you that you feel like you want to, leave on the table for folks? Is there anything we talked about you want to maybe double down on? Maybe a final, nugget you want to leave for people, a final advertisement for you and your services? Any of those things? I'm going to give you the floor for a minute. Go ahead and close out any way you see fit. Just go for it.
Yeah, sure. Two nuggets I learned when I was one, first in going through speech therapy, and number two, starting my career in broadcasting. The first thing I learned in speech therapy was the only person in control of your voice is you. The only person who's control of your voice or your speaking is you. So keep that in mind that you control the narrative. What comes out of your mouth, it's all controlled by you. And it's very powerful when you're on a stage, and it's really powerful when you're on a podcast for sure. The second piece that I learned in radio is, especially in my formative years, wanting to get everything out in one 30-second or minute long break, was the audience doesn't know what you don't tell them. The audience doesn't know what you don't tell them. You don't have to tell the audience everything. Give them just the information they need. So when you're in control of your speaking and you're telling the audience what they need to know, but it's not everything, number one, that allows the audience to come back to you, be that a podcast or a training or whatever it is, to learn more from you. But the second thing is it helps to build your credibility, to be seen as the expert, and keep a little bit of mystery alive about you and the things that you're doing. So podcastsolutionsmadesimple.com. Always happy to have a conversation with people. And if you don't like me, I know a guy named Rory who would love to have a conversation with you as well. But seriously, podcastsolutionsmadesimple.com. It takes 30 seconds to grab some time on my calendar.
Wonderful. Carl, it's been absolutely phenomenal having you on today. I've enjoyed every single minute of this, man. And thank you just for sharing everything you have. It's been great.
Thank you, Rory.
Thank you. Folks, it's been another absolutely awesome episode of The Podcaster Nation. And the reason why we get these awesome people on here is because this is the podcast that's about podcasters, it's for podcasters, and it's done by podcasters. And if we haven't shown it before, we sure showed it today. This is the podcast where the rising tide absolutely positively raises all ships. So keep sailing.